All right, we are here with Jacob today, and I'm so glad to see your studio today. And everybody, if you're able to hear both of us, just give us a thumbs up. We want to make sure audio and everything is going well. And today we're going to learn how to draw a human figure. So say hi to everybody, Jacob.
Hi.
Thank you so much for doing this for us.
Yeah, my pleasure. My pleasure.
Okay, we'll just let you take it away. We only have an hour, so don't have a lot of time.
All right. So, I'm going to be drawing a back pose. And the reference photo that I have has really nice value to it. Strong light and shadow, which you always want. And so I'm just going to start massing in some of the value, thinking about the composition, the focal point, where I want the center of interest to be. So always important in the beginning of drawing to spend more time thinking and analyzing than drawing. You want to spend, a lot of time thinking about what the drawing is going to look like, imagining it in your head before you put anything on the paper.
So when you're imagining what it looks like, are you thinking it more of a complete drawing or more of a gestural positioning at this stage?
Both. I definitely think about the gesture, the movement and rhythm, how forms flow from one part into the other. And that is like the first step of a drawing always. But in the beginning, I try to imagine how it would look like as a finished drawing. And then maybe think about the gesture after. You first think about the whole image, and then you think about the parts. So gesture is just one part of a drawing.
So I know we get to see your beautiful drawings on your Instagram, but it's really, like more of a finished product. So it's really great to see you actually draw.
Well, thank you.
Because you got to start from somewhere. So this whole process is going to be very interesting.
Yeah, always has to start somewhere. A lot of the stuff I've been posting lately on my Instagram has been like more finished work. But usually what I do mostly is just quick drawing. So, the difference between a quick drawing and long drawing is pretty big in terms of the finished product, right? But my approach isn't that different from one to the other, maybe just a little more careful. So you always try to think about the rhythm, the movement, not lose sight of the main part of the image that attracts you, right? If you look at something and you think, oh, this is like, oh wow, I really like this part of the image, or whatever excites you about an image or a subject matter, that's what you want to try to capture when you are drawing.
So right now you're using just my charcoal, right?
Yeah, just using fine charcoal. Actually, sorry, I'm using willow charcoal.
Oh, you're using willow. Okay.
Yeah, the willow is a little darker, gets a little more texture on the paper, so I really like it for certain like areas of the figure. or the background. Willow seems to me to leave a lot more texture on the paper than vine. And so just blocking out. And, you don't have to take your time. You can rush through, but, the more time you take in the beginning, probably nicer the results will be.
Kai just showed up. He said, looking good.
Thanks, Kai. And, when blocking in like the arm, you don't want to really define the hand yet. At least for me, a lot of times I make the arm too long. So if I add the hand in, I'm going to have to erase the whole hand. So you just draw the line and maybe indicate where you think the hand is going to be so you can move it up or down the arm later on, depending on if you made it too long, too short. Depends on your drawing habits. Some people always make the arm too short. Other people always make the arm too long.
Human back is just so interesting to draw because there's so many muscles and tones and everything in the back.
Yeah, you want to be really careful not to overdo the complexity. Like you really want to simplify, because most people don't know all of the anatomy in the back.
Yeah.
So if you overdo it, it looks kind of creepy, like too much information.
Yeah.
Especially the spine, like
oh yeah,
the vertebra, can easily look like a zombie or something.
Yeah, like if you make it too spiky, it looks like alien.
Yeah. So you want to make sure to keep it restrained. Really think about if you need this information or not.
Kind of like that picture, the drawing you have on the wall right there. There's another back.
Yeah.
So you can tell their muscles. It's really toned back, but at the same time, it's not like every single muscle strain is there. So you simplify quite a bit to give the right information, but without saying too much.
Yeah, it takes a while, I think, to get to the point where you have like a good idea of when too much is, when enough is enough or when you've gone too far.
Okay.
Of course, the only way you ever find that out is by going too far.
I was just thinking by going too far many times.
Yeah, most people don't go far enough.
Really?
They stop drawing way sooner than they should. So you have to experiment and be willing to create a terrible looking drawing. That's the only way I think that you will eventually get to a point where you know when to stop is by messing up.
Yeah.
We have to mess up. We can't be perfect all the time.
Is that what you mostly see in your students? They're just so careful that they won't try to mess up?
Yeah, and that's why a lot of people have drawings that are too light. That's a huge problem. Is the value always too light? Looks like a ghost, right, on the paper.
Yeah.
So you have to go dark. Most people don't want to go dark because they're afraid when they go too dark, they mess up.
Yeah.
And then they can't erase. But you have to go dark and you have to ruin drawings to understand, okay, I went too far. I should have stopped here. It's also why it's a good idea to take photos of your work. Every 10 minutes, every time you make a change to the drawing that's a big change, just take a photo with your phone or something. and this helps you see. You can always go back and say, "Oh, I liked the drawing before I added this," or "What went wrong?" That helps you improve.
Yeah. And then you see like those 3 drawings you have in the back. They are so powerful because you're able to establish the darkest dark and just go for it.
Mm-hmm.
But if you lighten those values to be, even one step lighter, it's not gonna look as powerful. Especially those 2 faces, there's more of a dramatic lighting. You gotta have that dark to make it dramatic.
Yeah, you really, really have to have good lighting to make a drawing look powerful from a distance. That's why I always prefer the one direction spotlight. And if people are in their house, don't have access to good lighting, bathrooms usually have the best lighting. They'll have a light from above or like a vanity light in front of the mirror.
Oh yeah.
That's usually pretty good lighting. You don't want something flat like a ring light.
Yeah.
Or like a makeup light.
Yeah.
Nothing that flattens the face. Or often kitchens as well have like a single light source coming from the ceiling, so you can photograph there or have people pose for you there. If you don't have like a strong lamp, like a professional grade lamp.
Nowadays, a lot of lightings are becoming cheaper and cheaper. Especially those LED lights on Amazon. It's like you can get one for $60, and you can adjust the temperature and the brightness. Those are pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah, you can definitely you can go crazy with the lighting.
Oh yeah. You can spend a lot of money.
Yeah. I drew with an artist once who had like the coolest light I've ever seen, which was it must have had like 100 light bulbs in it. It was this big array of lights, and one array of lights was warm, and then one was cool. So you could have like the warm or cool light. You could change the temperature on the fly. And I'd never seen anything like that. It was really nice. Mostly, if you want a warm, cool light, you have to change the light bulb or add a gel filter on top.
I just love your drawings. Like those 3 on your wall, I can totally see one day when I get rich, I'm gonna get your drawings over my house. Your drawings are so good.
Thank you.
And it's not because I can draw, but really your drawings are so good.
It's good to hear that. Sometimes you aren't always happy with your drawings. At least I'm not always. I'm probably rarely happy with my drawings. That's also how you improve, right? Is having impossibly high standards.
Yeah. I think artists, we tend to be too hard on ourselves.
Yeah.
So you can see right here, some of the lines are broken, right? Like right there on the thigh, you have it almost disappear, and all of a sudden there's a thinner line there. So this kind of lost and found, it's one of the reasons why I love your work so much, is because you don't have just a continuous line all the way through. There's always this lost and found edges, and it's easier to accomplish in painting, but in drawing is like you need to have really good control over your line quality, right?
Yeah, I think it just because you can't go back and erase as easily as in painting, like you can't go over and blend with the brush to lose edge. So I think that's maybe why it's a little harder. But yeah, the lost edge is something I learned from my teachers at art school, and I think it's really important. That's what I find most interesting, most fascinating about drawing is, how the form can disappear into the ether, in the background. Even if you don't have a background, just the white of the paper, you can still have things appearing, like emerging and disappearing into the background. Kind of creates an ethereal look, which I really like. Although I do really like the use of outline. Like one of my favorite artists is Alphonse Mucha, who uses outline all the time. But that's also something important for people to learn is, there's always going to be things that you like in art that you won't necessarily be able to incorporate into your own work. So you have to pick and choose.
Yeah.
What you incorporate, what you choose not to incorporate.
And also your drawing is so clean. Sometimes, people have those gestural lines in the beginning to draw the envelope and all that stuff. But then yours is pretty, to me, it looks really precise as you lay it down. Even though you're blocking it in the beginning, but the way you block it in, it's pretty much there. So there's not a lot of erasing happening.
I think you should try to erase as little as possible. Like if you can avoid putting down a line that you're going to have to erase later, that's the ideal. Is to like not have to put that in. But that just comes with a lot of time because I couldn't accurately do this for a really long time. I'd have clean drawings, but they'd be terrible proportion, like head up here and like waist down here, like impossibly long. So too many mistakes in the past. I've learned from those how to have like a cleaner drawing. Paying attention to my many mistakes. Because if you don't learn from your mistakes, then they're not helpful. Hopefully your mistakes should be helpful.
And that's kind of what we were talking about the other day, last week or the week before, with Brian Mar Taylor about developing your mastery. Is that concept of deliberate practice. Like every time you practice, there's got to be a goal why you are doing this for 2 hours or 3 hours. And then when and then the main takeaway from this session, right? Like you take away from your 3 hours and say, okay, these are the good things, these are not the good things, and if it's not the good things, what happened? And kind of like what you're saying, if you take photographs of your work, it will help you to discover what happened there. And the next time you can learn from your mistakes.
Exactly. You ideally want to be productive with your errors, right? I think one of my favorite quotes is from The Natural Way to Draw, which is a really fun book to read through. And the author says that the sooner you make your first 5,000 mistakes, the sooner you'll be able to correct them. So, mistakes are so important to the learning process. And, this is about 20 minutes in. And so I have like the basic, skeleton of the drawing and rendering and getting rid of some of the texture so that it's not so, her back doesn't look so scaly.
Speaking of Brian, he's online right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's looking good, Jacob.
Oh, thank you. I love your work.
I think this is a good way to spend our Mondays.
Yeah, beats watching television, I suppose.
Right?
I've never done an online demo before. I mean, for my classes, yeah, but like not like a streamed.
Yeah.
So it's a strange feeling because I can't like hear or see anyone.
I know, right? It's why our live workshops are more fun because people are able to tune in. We use Zoom and they will turn on their mic or even camera to see each other and interact.
Yeah, I really miss the live workshops.
Yeah.
but they'll come back eventually, hopefully. And I'm just using like the same piece of charcoal from before. You know, you can switch to, like, I have the longer pieces, but I'm fine with using this one for now.
So it looks like you have really, really light touch when you're drawing, right?
Yes, it takes a practice to develop, but you really want to have good pressure sensitivity. Yeah, I know it's you know, slightly morbid, but I tell people, you know, you should pretend like you're petting like a really old animal. You know, you don't want to like kill the animal by pressing it too petting it too hard. You know, you have to pet very, very gently. So like, you know, as softly as you would pet like a kitten or something, right? You have to not take your anger out on the paper. That's, I think, you know, most people don't consider how hard they press when they are making a mark, because they're so focused on getting the right mark that they're not considering how to make the mark. You know, whether or not like the line is in the right spot, you know, all of the other things that you have to keep in your mind. There's too many things to keep in your mind when you're drawing. So, you know, the pressure sensitivity goes out the window. So it takes a while, but I mean, it's not like rocket science or anything. It's like just, you know, making sure that you aren't pressing too hard.
So with the COVID-19, if someone want to learn from you, they can get on your website to sign up for your online courses, right?
Yeah. Right now I teach online classes. They're 6 weeks long, and oh, there it is. 6 weeks long, and they meet once a week.
Yeah, you're telling me it's like 3 hours every week. They get to draw together, and there's lecture, demo, and you would do a critique thing with them too.
Yeah.
It's so nice.
Yeah. It's nice for me, you know. I've gotten good feedback from it, but I really like, you know, being there and being able to interact with people. I think I'd go a little crazy if I never got a chance to talk to students, because I miss that. But yeah, you know, I like it.
Yeah.
I think this must be it.
Do you mostly use your fingers to blend?
Yeah, I try to avoid using the stumps if I can. I use a lot of paper towel as well, but I think I like the way that finger looks the most of all the different ways of blending.
Uh-huh.
I think you can get some very, very painterly effects with paper towel,
Yeah.
but finger still feels like the most natural, I think. And, there is sort of like the nice tactile sensation of being able to, determine how hard you press.
Mhm.
Sometimes, like the stump, the paper fibers will start to wear out if you've used it long enough, and it develops a different characteristic. Like it'll blend too much or too little after a while. So
Yeah.
they have limited lifespan, but hopefully your fingers don't have limited lifespan. You can always use them.
And also
You
it's
just wanna-
hard to control how clean your stump is.
Yeah. You can always wash your hand, but you can't really wash your stump.
Good analogy. Because sometimes you grab one stump and it's picked up a lot of charcoal, whatever drawing powders on it, and then you, instead of blending it, you were almost like drawing on it.
Yeah.
It gets,
And I think you just have to be careful when you're using your hands to make sure that you're not like sweaty or have like a hand lotion on or something,
oh
because
yeah.
the oil in your finger will mix with the charcoal and it'll like make a permanent mark that you can't get rid of. So, if you're like nervous while drawing, wash your hands to get the sweat off, and then you can use your finger again.
So I wonder how many people are actually drawing along right now. So if any one of you are drawing, just kind of say yes or something, so at least we can get a good feel. So you never know, like we do these Monday demos. I do see sometimes students will post their work as they pen along, or some of them they will go back to rewatch it and then post whatever you're doing, which is really cool. But
That is.
I try to
sometimes.
pen
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say sometimes people on Instagram will like copy my drawings and then tag me in it.
Uh-huh.
So I always think it's really fun to see like how people interpret the same image.
Yeah, like a different take.
Yeah.
But it's hard to watch and pen or draw along. I tried to do it once with Jared Brady when he was doing actually last week when Kai was doing the portrait drawing, I was drawing along with it, but it's so hard.
Yeah, I think really hard to pay attention to what you're doing and follow along with what the other person is doing.
Oh, I have one person said this person is drawing along. That's good. I was gonna draw along, but then I decided from my last failure, I'm just gonna watch you. It makes a difference because when I watch you closely, that's how I was able to pick up how light you were applying your drawing, like your charcoal to the paper. but if I'm kind of distracted and doing my own thing, soon enough I won't be watching you at all. I'll be just doing my own thing.
Yeah, you want to. That's how I learned, was just like copying my teachers and watching them.
Yeah.
I think mostly beneficial is watching or like drawing the same thing that they are drawing.
Yeah.
Using the same reference. And here I'm just using a longer stick of vine, or longer stick of willow. But I'm like not touching the paper really. Like I'm obviously touching the paper, but I mean no pressure. Like I'm just dragging it across without using any force on my hand. So it's very, very light.
Yeah, sometimes in your post we can see that really, really light but fine texture on your drawing, which is so beautiful but under control.
Oh, thank you.
I suck at drawing, that's why. I just can't control anything when I draw.
I don't know, not always the most in control either, especially when I paint. I like really messy. I think probably more about the thought process. At least I've seen some artists who get really nice work, but like their process is so messy. It looks like kind of like crap halfway through, and then ends up looking good at the end. So I'm just using this like little stick to kind of render the form.
When you are drawing by yourself, do you listen to music?
Yeah, I usually do. I usually listen to something like that's just relaxing, that has like no lyrics, like jazz or like ambient noise. Sometimes just like forest sounds or something, because I have a hard time drawing in silence. It is like it kind of. I'm glad that you're like talking to me, because I don't like drawing in silence.
Yeah.
Like,
I was just about to put on some music.
Yeah, that's fine.
No, but when I turn it on, I'll turn on the beast mode.
The beast mode?
Yeah, have you listened to that beast mode on Spotify?
No.
Oh, you gotta try it out. If you like wake up in the morning, you feel kind of like, I'm not ready for the day, turn on beast mode.
I do not feel like a beast in the morning. I feel like I need more sleep.
Yeah, that's why I use beast mode to kind of get me going.
And you want to take time to render out, some of the areas that are, like have more subtle lighting. areas in the shadow here with the reflected light. It's very subtle lighting. You want to make sure that it's not, just a big flat mass, but at the same time, you also want it to blend in all together. So the shadows should feel like they're uniform, but still should have the reflected light in separate parts of the shadow to them.
Yeah, the reflective light is tricky because they are in the shadow, so you can't make it too light.
Yeah, most people make the reflected light too bright.
Yeah.
That's like a huge, probably like the biggest mistake that people make when it comes to adding value.
Mm-hmm.
This reflected light always ends up looking like holes, like Swiss cheese or something, because it looks like a hole punched in someone's body because it's too bright and it's surrounded by like very dark areas.
Yeah, especially that I think that's the biggest danger is the surrounding area value is so dark. So if you do anything that's slightly even too light, it's going to stand out really fast.
Yeah.
Welcome, Jesse. So Jesse says, thanks for doing this.
Oh yeah, my pleasure.
Okay, here comes a question.
All right.
I was just waiting, kind of like, all right, guys, it's about over. Gotta have some questions. So, what were your biggest challenges in learning to draw, and how did you overcome them?
That's a really good question. Biggest challenges in learning how to draw were like proportion and shape. And so I actually was able to draw with like the accurate value and edges before I could draw with accurate shape. So that part of my eye didn't develop for a while, but I think it's because I was like too undisciplined. Like I wanted to practice my way and draw what I wanted and not listen all the time to my teachers. So I think, the best thing that you can do is listen to your instructors and take their advice to heart, even if you don't want to do the things that they want you to do, because it helps. So, I improved by doing longer studies, which I hated doing. Hated doing like anything longer than like 20, 30 minutes. But you have to do that in order to improve. So just take your teacher's advice and balance out your weaknesses. If you're really good at doing quick drawings, then you have to do long drawings, and vice versa. If you only ever do really long drawings, you'll never be able to do something quick, like a sketch at a cafe or something.
Yeah.
So I improved because I eventually started doing longer drawings. But before that, I would only normally do like quick sketches at a cafe or something, like really quick drawings. But you need both. Also, having patience and understanding that you will improve eventually, even if you don't feel like you will. Because, there are many, many times when I felt so discouraged, like I wanted to just give up art and not draw anymore, a lot of times. And, I'm glad that I stuck with it. And I never thought that I would be able to draw at the level that I can draw at now. Not that I'm like the most amazing, but like it's better than I thought I would be able to draw when I first started. So, you have to have high goals and know that it will take a long time to get there and have patience.
Good answer. So that kind of answered her long question here. Is just basically, are there any concepts or breakthroughs that greatly further your advancement as an artist? Those aha moments, I think it explained really well. And kind of like what you're saying, sometimes we just gotta learn to be a student and listen to the
Yes,
teachers.
I do think like, aha moments are the most important. And I've discovered that not everybody really has those. Some people can go their whole drawing career without having, an aha moment, and they never progress to the level of a professional. I think probably because they're not maybe looking at the world the right way, they're not taking in enough artwork. I think pretty much all of the, aha, eureka moments I've had have been because I've studied other people's artwork or watched other people draw and then realized, oh, that's how they get that effect. Oh, that's the shape of the leg, or that's the shape of the arm because of the way that they draw it. So you really have to like study a lot of artists all the time, copy their work, take it into consideration when you draw. Don't just, isolate yourself and have one or two influences and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
You can have an idea of how you'd like your work to look, but you have to study everything, I think.
Yeah. And that's why we're bringing you guys on to do a lot of these Monday demos to show different approaches so people get to learn something from everybody, because it's not like you can find one um, like universal master and only learn from one person and it can be the best. Because we all learn from a lot of different masters, Sergeant Zorn and all these different people throughout history, or even a lot of living masters. And that would just help us to develop the way to see, the way to use the tools, apply paint, or even apply pressure on paper, all different things. And it's just a good way to learn, right?
Yeah, Sargent's a great person to study. I think, studying like the old masters is, really good as well. Like Robert Beverly Hale has like a whole series of books about, learning from the old masters, and his commentary is some of the best I've ever seen on how to study, how to draw.
Yeah.
I would recommend those.
Okay, what are your top 5 tips for drawing the figure?
Top 5. Oh, I'll lose track. Top 5. Let's see. Keep the gesture in mind. If you lose the gesture, you're not drawing the figure, you're drawing a statue. And you don't want to draw a statue, you want to draw something that looks like it's moving and breathing. And also, you have to keep in mind the balance. Gesture helps you keep the balance. If you don't have good gesture, you could end up with a nice looking figure, but that looks like it's about to tip over.
Mm-hmm.
And I've done that enough times over the course of my studies that I really try to make sure that I never do that, because I've had so many embarrassing drawings that are otherwise good but look like they're about to fall over because didn't pay enough attention to the balance and gesture. Unify the shadows. Make sure that you have not little patches of shadow that look like, chicken pox or something on a person. You want like big parts of shadow. Nice chiaroscuro. Look at like a Caravaggio, see how all the, what are they called? The tenebrists or whatnot, have the light emerging out of the shadow, and how they design those shapes. And let's see. 5 tips. That's a lot of tips. You have to keep the proportions in mind. Don't, just draw without taking into consideration, if you are placing the arm at the right spot, like you don't want the limbs to look like tentacles. They shouldn't be super long, unless it's on purpose. I always end up drawing limbs longer because that's just like my bad habit, but I also like the way it looks. Like I'm kind of like a mannerist when it comes to my ideal proportions. I like elongated figures, probably because I'm tall and skinny. So keep the proportions in mind as well. And yeah, I don't know if there's like I don't have like a particular list. I suppose it's just like every part of the figure could be broken down and you could say, do this, don't do that. But it also depends on the pose. You have to change some of these rules for each of the poses. The way that I would approach a pose, it's like a back pose like this, different than I would approach a front-facing figure that's standing. Also, the way that I would approach a figure with this really strong shadow that we have, different than I would approach a figure with, more subtle lighting. Like a lot of academic drawings have basically ambient light. They don't have anything strong, no strong shadows. They're just like really tiny shadows. So you have to be able to change your approach on the fly to adapt to various situations, because you'll never be in control 100% of the time of the value of the lighting. Even sometimes when you're the teacher, you don't have 100% control over the lighting.
So we have about 12 minutes.
Cool. I've kind of been like, trying to slow down a little bit, so this is good.
Yeah.
Let's see.
I like how you indicate the weight on that elbow. Like you make it like just the line, and then how you curve it, make the mark. You can feel the weight it's supporting the whole body.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. Without that, it will really look like she's about to tip over.
Yeah, you don't want to like, her arm in the photo is locked. So I think it would not be wise to draw it like that. It looks like too much of a straight line. There's no rhythm or motion to it. So you want to, you have to make things up sometimes.
Yeah.
This is a time when you have to make it up because it's not the way that you want it in the reference. And that's just the way it is, right? You'll never get perfect pose all the time, or even if you tell the model something to do, a lot of times, they get tired. They can't hold the pose 100% of the time.
Yeah.
You have to be ready to make things up.
Oh, here's a cool question. If you were to recommend a rough curriculum or process for studying figure drawing, what would that be? For example, study gesture, then anatomy. So I think what we're looking for is more of some type of order of learning, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I kind of really jumped around in my studies. I didn't have like a set way of learning. I think that gesture is actually really difficult to understand. Like really understanding it takes a long time, and you're going to draw a lot of stick figures before you get it. So it doesn't have to be the first thing. I actually think probably studying the construction of the figure first would be best. And making sure that, when I say construction, I mean like, the three-dimensional forms that comprise the figure, sort of like those little art mannequins that you can buy, the wooden ones. So you have like a boxy shape for the hips, or an egg shape for the rib cage, an egg shape for the head, a cylinder for the legs, those kinds of things. And making like three-dimensional figures that have no detail, just the construction shapes. Doing those over and over and over again until you understand some of the basic construction of the figure, and then moving on from there to the planes. Understanding the way that the planes work and memorizing the planes. That is the most important, because you can have a good gesture, but if you can't bring that gesture to completion, that's what you need the construction for. Understanding how the forms turn in space, what the planes are, how to shade them. That's what makes a good drawing. And so studying that before you study the gesture, I think would probably be beneficial. And just making sure that you have the basics. Right? You really want the basics. If you have trouble getting the value, if you have trouble getting the contour, you have to study those, right? Mm-hmm. Do some barg drawings, right? You don't have to do a ton of them, but to do some, just to train your eye to see the shapes, see the subtleties in the value and the shading. That's what I would recommend. I don't think you have to have like a set curriculum. You can bounce around, but yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to say you can move on to the next thing before you really master this first thing, because they all kind of tie together, right?
Yeah, I mean, certainly in the old days, and still at a lot of like ateliers, you can't move on to painting until you have mastered drawing.
Yeah.
But I found painting to be so beneficial to me. It's actually the times that I made the biggest strides in my drawing were when I stopped drawing and focused on other media, like painting and sculpting.
Yeah.
So I do think that if you go too long without painting, your drawing starts to suffer.
Yeah.
And vice versa. So you shouldn't wait forever to learn painting, even though it is very complex and most people struggle with it to an incredible degree. But don't wait forever, because it's really beneficial.
Or some people like me, I just can't draw, but I enjoy painting, so.
Yeah, I think like they're so interwoven, if sometimes you like, don't feel like drawing, maybe like, force yourself to draw. I usually don't feel like painting because it's so messy, and I hate the cleanup, but I force myself to every once in a while, because I feel like if I painting for too long, my drawing suffers. Because then I start to get too tight in the rendering. Mm-hmm. And I want my rendering to be loose and painterly. So you can't have loose painterly rendering unless you paint.
Oh yeah. Man, time flies. We have 5 minutes.
Perfect. I should be able to finish up the hair in 5 minutes.
Oh, I have a question. So when you finish drawing, do you have any spray fixative that you use for your drawings?
Yes. actually, one of the reasons that those drawings are on the wall back there is because I haven't sprayed them yet. And so I have to keep them away from my other work so that they won't get destroyed. So the spray fixative that I use is, I think it's Van Gogh or Manet.
Okay.
It's named after one of the Impressionist painters. It's like comes in a hairspray bottle, and it's meant for pastel.
Okay.
And it's the only non-toxic spray that I can find, because my art studio, right now my art studio is my apartment, but before, my art studio does not have ventilation, right? So I can't, and even if a room does have ventilation, you can't spray indoors. You have to do it outside.
Oh yeah, those things are so toxic.
Yeah, so, even spraying outside, it's like the pedestrians would get hit by it, and, I can't spray out on busy San Francisco streets. So I had to find a non-toxic spray. And so that one is like alcohol-based, and I think it uses like milk protein to bind the charcoal, but it really works. It really works well. However, it will spray globs of the spray on your artwork. So you have to get like a different bottle for it. They sell like a continuous spray bottles on Amazon. It's like the long bottle, and when you pull the trigger, like it'll just spray a continuous fine mist. So you buy one of those, you dump the fixative in there, and then you have a non-toxic spray that you can use that won't destroy your drawings.
Cool.
Yeah, but you have to use like very light coats because it's liquid. It's not aerosolized, so it will soak your paper if you do too heavy of a coat, and then you won't be able to get rid of those that paper damage.
So interesting.
There's just considerations. There's no like perfect way to preserve charcoal drawings. The values are always going to darken. You're going to end up with, some spots on your paper maybe, but there's no alternative. The alternative is to have a drawing that's permanently destroyed. So yeah, you kind of have to.
Okay, here's a good question. How do you know where to push your darkest darks? Because they've noticed that on the top segment of the butt cheeks, and then also, where is it? Behind the knees, it looks much darker than the reference photo.
I just decide like where I want the focal point to be, what I want the balance of light and shadow to look like. So I made this lighter a little bit than I see in the reference. I made the back of the knee darker than I see in the reference. To kind of balance out other areas. I made the calf darker than in the reference as well. I want the focal point to be like, around here, and secondary focal point here. Or maybe if I push this a little more, then this could be the main focal point, and then this area, the glutes and the hips, will be secondary focal point. But you have to think about the composition, how you are going to, compose the image, what you want to say about the drawing as well, right?
Yeah. And then as you push the darker area a bit darker, you increase the contrast, and that will draw the eyes right to it.
Yeah, wherever there's more contrast, the eyes are going to look. So you have to take that into consideration.
Yeah. Well, it looks like we are out of time. It's 5 o'clock.
Perfect.
But you did a good job. It's almost finished.
Yeah, pretty much. I think not really anything else I would do to it except maybe touch up the hair. So yeah, thank you so much for having me do a demo.
Yeah. Hey, do you want to get the drawing a bit closer to the camera so we can get a closer look?
Yeah.
So we see more of a texture. Let's see. I might need to adjust it a bit. Okay. Hang on, guys. Let me adjust this thing real quick. We can see the whole thing. Let's see here. Cool. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. And if you want to learn from Jacob, you can go to his website and check out his ongoing courses. It's a great way to learn from him. So as you can see, he is able to render figures in a very controlled manner, and it takes a lot of practice and of course a lot of learning from good teachers, and he's a great teacher. So I encourage you to check out his work, follow his work, and if you're interested in learning from him, you know where to find him. So thank you, Jacob, again, and we'll see you guys next time.
Thank you.